Before you scroll away, before you think you've heard every version of a talent show miracle, stay with me for just a moment, because by the end of this story, you won't just remember a song, you'll remember a soul. And if stories like this move you, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel, because moments like this deserve to be shared with the world. The theater lights were blinding, the kind that make your knees shake even before you take a single step. From behind the curtain, a thin boy stood clutching a worn guitar, its scratches telling stories older than he was. He was from a small coastal town in the Philippines, a place where dreams were whispered quietly because shouting them felt dangerous. His sandals were cheap, his clothes simple, but his eyes carried something heavy, not fear, but responsibility. At home, his mother sold snacks on the roadside, his younger siblings slept on the floor beside him, and music was the only thing that made hunger feel less loud. Tonight, he wasn't just singing for himself. He was singing for survival. When his name was called, the audience barely noticed him at first. No flashy outfit. No dramatic entrance. Just a poor kid walking slowly onto one of the biggest stages in the world. A few people exchanged doubtful looks. Even the judges leaned back, polite but guarded. He introduced himself softly, his accent trembling as much as his hands. When asked why he chose such a legendary song, he paused, swallowed, and said it reminded him of a place he'd never been but always dreamed of, a place where pain could rest, even if just for a night. The first notes of Hotel California floated into the air, gentle and unsure. And then, something changed. His voice didn't just sing the lyrics, it lived inside them. There was rawness in every word, a quiet ache that no vocal training could teach. The crowd leaned forward. Conversations stopped. Phones lowered. It felt as if time itself decided to listen. As the song built, so did the emotion. His voice cracked, not from weakness, but from truth. You could hear years of struggle between the notes, nights practicing by candlelight, mornings waking up to empty cupboards, moments when quitting felt easier than believing. And yet, there he was, standing tall, pouring everything he had into one performance. The judges' expressions shifted from curiosity to disbelief. One leaned forward, eyes locked. Another covered their mouth, stunned. And Simon, the man known for cold honesty, wasn't smirking. He was staring, silent, as if the boy had reached something buried deep inside him. By the final chorus, the audience was already on its feet. Tears streamed freely, applause erupting before the last note even faded. When the song ended, there was a split second of silence, the kind that happens when people don't know how to react to something that just touched their hearts, and then the theater exploded. Cheers, screams, standing ovation. The boy stood frozen, eyes wide, as if he couldn't believe they were clapping for him. The feedback came fast, emotional, overwhelming. The judges spoke about courage, about authenticity, about how talent like this couldn't be taught. Simon finally spoke, his voice calm but different than usual. He said that performances like this were the reason the show existed. That this wasn't just singing, it was storytelling, honesty, and bravery wrapped into one voice. And then, the moment happened. The golden buzzer was pressed. Golden confetti rained down like a miracle. The boy dropped to his knees, hands shaking, crying openly now. Not because he'd won something, but because, for the first time, the world had heard him. In that moment, he wasn't poor. He wasn't invisible. He was proof that talent doesn't come from comfort, and dreams don't need permission. Later, backstage, he said something simple that stayed with everyone: I sang so my family could believe tomorrow can be better. And that was the real victory. Not the stage. Not the buzzer. But hope. If this story touched you, if it reminded you that dreams can rise from the hardest places, show your support by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Because somewhere right now, another kid is singing into the darkness, hoping someone will listen. And sometimes, all it takes is one moment, one song, and one chance to change everything. Before you scroll, before your thumb moves away, pause for just a few seconds, because what you're about to hear isn't just another talent show story. It's a reminder of why dreams exist in the first place. If stories of hope, struggle, and impossible victories move you even a little, please like this video and subscribe to the channel right now. It tells the algorithm that stories like this matter, and more importantly, it helps us reach people who need hope today. The boy stood alone behind the stage curtain, barefoot on the cold floor, holding a guitar that had been repaired more times than he could remember. The wood was chipped, the strings slightly rusted, but it was the most valuable thing he owned. He was only 14, but life had already taught him lessons most adults never learn. In his small town in the Philippines, mornings began with uncertainty: would there be enough food, enough money, enough hope? His father had left years ago. His mother worked long hours selling food by the roadside, smiling through exhaustion so her children wouldn't see how heavy life felt. Music became his escape, his shelter, his prayer. At night, when the neighborhood fell silent except for the sound of waves and distant traffic, he would sit outside their tiny home and sing softly so he wouldn't wake his siblings. He learned songs not from lessons, but from an old radio and borrowed internet time. Each lyric felt like a window into another world, one where pain could be turned into something beautiful. One song, in particular, stayed with him. Hotel California. He didn't fully understand its meaning at first, but something about its mystery, its longing, its loneliness felt familiar. Now, standing thousands of miles away on the biggest stage of his life, his hands trembled. The lights were brighter than anything he had ever seen. The audience felt endless. He could hear his heart beat louder than the crowd. For a moment, fear tried to pull him back to the safety of anonymity, back to a life where failure stayed private. But then he remembered his mother's tired smile, his siblings' laughter, the nights when hunger made sleep difficult. This wasn't just an audition. This was his chance. When he walked onto the stage, there was polite applause, but nothing more. No one expected magic from a skinny kid in simple clothes. The judges watched calmly, professionally. One of them asked about his background, and his voice shook as he answered. He spoke about his family, about singing in the streets, about dreaming bigger than his circumstances. When asked why he chose such a legendary song, he hesitated, then said quietly that the song felt like a place he wanted to reach someday, a place where struggles could rest, even if only for a moment. The first guitar notes were gentle, almost fragile. His voice entered softly, unsure, as if testing whether the world would listen. But something happened after the first verse. His voice grew steadier, deeper, more honest. It wasn't perfect. It was better than perfect, it was real. Each word carried weight, shaped by nights of doubt and days of resilience. The audience leaned forward without realizing it. The judges' expressions changed. This wasn't just a kid singing. This was a story unfolding. As the song continued, emotion filled the room. His voice cracked at moments, not from nerves, but from truth. You could hear struggle in the pauses, hope in the chorus, and courage in the way he stood tall despite everything stacked against him. For the first time, the crowd wasn't watching a contestant. They were listening to a soul. When the final note faded, silence wrapped the theater. A heavy, powerful silence. Then suddenly, the audience erupted. Cheers, applause, standing ovation. People wiped tears from their faces. The boy stood frozen, eyes wide, overwhelmed by a reaction he had never imagined. For the first time in his life, people weren't looking past him, they were looking at him. The judges spoke with emotion, praising not just his voice, but his bravery. They talked about authenticity, about how moments like this couldn't be manufactured. And then came the moment that would change everything. The golden buzzer was pressed. Golden confetti rained down, filling the stage like a dream. The boy collapsed to his knees, crying openly, his guitar clutched tightly as if it were the only thing keeping him grounded. In that moment, he wasn't poor. He wasn't invisible. He wasn't forgotten. He was seen. Backstage, through tears, he said he sang so his family could believe in tomorrow. And that's what made this moment unforgettable. Not the buzzer. Not the applause. But the reminder that greatness can come from anywhere. If this story touched your heart, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Because somewhere right now, another child is singing in the dark, hoping the world will listen. And sometimes, all it takes is one song, one chance, to change everything. Before you skip this video, before you assume you already know how this story ends, stop for a moment. Because some stories don't just entertain, they remind us why hope still matters. If you believe dreams can come from the darkest places, please like this video and subscribe to the channel right now. Your one click helps stories like this reach the people who need them most. The boy stood quietly behind the stage curtain, barely visible in the shadows, clutching a guitar that looked older than his dreams. His fingers traced the worn strings the way some people hold onto prayer beads, not for comfort, but for courage. He was born in a small fishing village in the Philippines, where mornings began with uncertainty and nights ended with unanswered questions. His family didn't talk about dreams because dreams felt expensive. Survival came first. Food came second. Hope came last. From a young age, he learned what it meant to wait for his mother to come home after selling food all day under the burning sun, wait for leftover rice to cool down, wait for tomorrow to maybe be kinder than today. His father had disappeared years ago, leaving behind silence instead of explanations. Music became the only voice that stayed. An old radio, shared internet clips, and borrowed songs taught him melodies the world never meant him to learn. At night, while his siblings slept close together on the floor, he would step outside with his guitar and sing softly to the ocean air. He sang not because he believed he was special, but because singing made pain quieter. Every lyric felt like a secret escape route. One song followed him everywhere, Hotel California. He didn't fully understand its story, but the feeling of longing inside it felt like home. Now, thousands of miles away from that small village, standing on a stage that had launched legends, his legs felt weak. The lights were too bright. The audience too big. The silence too loud. For a moment, fear crept in, whispering that he didn't belong here, that this stage was meant for people with money, confidence, and backup plans. He had none of those. All he had was his voice. When his name was called, he walked forward slowly. The applause was polite but unsure. People looked at him and made quiet judgments without realizing it. He wore simple clothes. His shoes were worn. His posture carried the weight of responsibility, not arrogance. He introduced himself with a shy smile and a trembling voice. When asked about his background, he spoke honestly about his family, his struggles, his love for music. When asked why he chose such an iconic song, he paused and said something simple, because it feels like a place where broken people can rest. The guitar started softly. The first notes floated out uncertainly, fragile like glass. His voice followed, gentle, almost afraid. But then something shifted. With each line, his confidence grew. His voice wasn't loud, but it was honest. It carried pain without begging for sympathy. It carried hope without demanding belief. The audience leaned forward. Phones lowered. Whispers stopped. His voice cracked at moments, not from nerves, but from truth. You could hear nights of hunger in his pauses. You could hear resilience in the way he held the chorus. This wasn't a performance polished by privilege. This was survival turned into sound. The judges' expressions changed slowly, almost unwillingly. Doubt melted into surprise. Surprise turned into respect. One judge wiped their eyes. Another shook their head in disbelief. And then there was Simon, famous for his brutal honesty, his raised eyebrows, his dismissive smirks. But now, he wasn't judging. He was listening. As the song reached its final moments, the boy closed his eyes. He wasn't on stage anymore. He was back home, singing to the night, dreaming of a future he wasn't sure existed. When the final note faded, silence wrapped the room like a held breath. Then everything exploded. The audience jumped to their feet. Applause roared. Cheers echoed. Tears fell freely. The boy stood frozen, overwhelmed by something he had never experienced: recognition. Not pity. Not charity. Respect. The judges spoke with emotion. They talked about courage, authenticity, raw talent. They said this was why the show existed, not for perfection, but for moments that remind us we are human. Then came the sound that would change his life forever. The golden buzzer. Golden confetti rained from above like destiny itself had decided to speak. The boy dropped to his knees, sobbing openly, clutching his guitar like it might disappear if he let go. Years of struggle poured out in one uncontrollable moment. This wasn't just success. This was validation. This was proof that his pain had meaning. Backstage, still shaking, he spoke quietly through tears. He said he wanted his family to believe that tomorrow could be better. He said he wanted kids like him to know that being poor doesn't mean being powerless. And that was